Hey everybody, this is Josh. Welcome back to the Parable Arrows video podcast. I am joined by none other than many podcasts famous Pastor Frank Gill from Epicos here in Milwaukee. Gloria and I, so my wife Gloria, we had a really weird, because I listened to Ninjas Are Butterflies. Yeah. And there was an episode where all of a sudden it was like, Frank Gill? Like the Frank Gill? Like the Frank Gill that I know? So before we dive into the episode today, we're talking about Fight Club and just what that looks like in masculinity, church culture, just with some things that have happened in the last couple of years with like the rise and fall of Mars Hill by Christianity Today. But before we get into that, I want to pick your brain. Yeah. What was it? How do you know the Ninjas Are Butterfly guys? Like, what was it like? Because I think you like went down there for part of a trip and then fit it in.
Yeah, I've been on that show twice. Well, have I been? Yeah, I've been on that show, I think twice now. And I've also been on the Sunday Cool YouTube channel. They did if you look up a Cinco de Mayo thing, they made me eat hot spicy chips, and they put like the hot sauce from like the hot ones in there. Yeah, I've known them. So I used to be a youth pastor for a number of years. Yeah. Sunday Cool, which is the company that kind of like Ninjas and Butterflies is associated with, made shirts for me all the in the past, and I've gotten to know the guys through meeting them at conferences. They're just really cool dudes, and we just got along. And I'm originally from Florida, so they're in Central Florida. And whenever I'm in their vicinity, I try just to link up with them. Yeah. But then they're like, want to come on the show? And I'm like, absolutely. And it's always a good time. They're really, really great guys, and they're really fun. And I get to share funny stories with them and talk to them. They're good. Yeah. They're great.
Awesome. And I know in addition, that's their show, but you do a couple shows and you're just saying about a couple of them. So what are the main ones that I know one's on kind of hiatus. Yeah. One's on one's actually in production.
Yeah. So I have a podcast called Practically Pastoring. So it started off with me and 4 other guys during the pandemic. We're all kind of dudes who are in ministry around the same age, and kind of had the same experience. We're all kind of in student ministry, entered into this role where we're kind of like the main adult pastor for our churches, and we're like, how can we help each other? Like we don't know what we're doing. Like no one is like there to coach us, and we've kind of garnered a small community of pastors that are just like, we're here to support one another. We're just practically pastoring. We're barely pastoring, but we're also trying to be really practical with our pastoring. So that's really fun, and that's been going on for a few years, and it happens, you can find that at practicallypastoring.com. Then, me and my buddy Tommy, who's also a pastor at Epicos, also Pastor Jacob, who is also a pastor at Epicos, he's on there a lot. Mm-hmm. We have a show called The Marvelous Gospel, and basically it stems from we're just super Marvel geeks about like talking about Marvel, theorizing about Marvel, and then because we're pastors, we're nerding out about Marvel, and then there's these like small comments about theology that have come up into it. And I remember I was talking to Tommy, and I said, one thing I like about the Marvel Cinematic Universe is that every movie is very different in like its genre and its tone, but it tells one unifying story across the whole cinematic universe. And I'm like, it's like the Bible, 66 books, very different books, very different genres, but they tell one unifying story. And then that's where we're like, we should do a podcast about that and talk about like theological implications in Marvel movies. And that's been a lot of fun. So we got through Iron Man 1 through Endgame, and we decided to take a pause because we like, that was a good achievement, and now we're going to come back eventually. We just haven't put a date on that. And then lastly, I have this is the most niche thing ever. This might apply to 0% of your audience, but I started a very short form podcast that's going to be only 10 weeks long. It's called What is a Campus Pastor? That's my title at my church. I'm a campus pastor. It's a thing that only multi-site churches have, and there's not a lot of resources for it, and I just want to be able to help my fellow campus pastors kind of understand what this ministry, this job is like. And so that'll come out September 4th. whatisacampuspastor.com.
Nice. Awesome. Busy guy for a pastor.
I know.
How do you manage it all? Or like where do you find your pockets of time? Because I think I wrestle with that all the time, having like 50 creative things that I'm always doing.
I think one is I've learned that like just because you have a creative idea doesn't mean you have to do every creative idea. You can just kind of like the What is a Campus Pastor idea had started a year ago, and I started thinking about it because there's no resources for it, but I didn't pull the trigger on that until like a couple months ago. And I was very specific with it. I was like, I wanted this to be short form so I can record everything ahead of time and then launch it, as opposed to doing like a week-to-week podcast where I have deadlines every week type of thing. But it's with, you have to create boundaries. I have certain times in my calendar where, some people play video games, some people, will read comments, some people will work out. I decided to be on my computer and do a podcast. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I like really try to schedule out my time appropriately to be able to do those type of things. And then there's times where other things take priority, whether it's my wife, whether it's work, whether it's, my own health. Like I'll like say, hey, I'm going to time out. So even like practically pastoring, that's been like weekly for about 3 or 4 years now. Like we've taken like 2-month breaks and stuff like that. Marvelous Gospel, we've had like a year break, and those are intentional because we want to be able to breathe and have time. So it's finding a good groove and having like a healthy groove in what you want to do, whether it's a side hustle, a creative project, is to not feel like you're trying to take on another full-time job.
Yeah,
that's not healthy.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah.